Today we have Tracey from Pecunia, and we'll be talking about the very interesting topic of credit management. But before we kick off, Tracey, can you share a bit about your journey, how you got into credit management, some of the companies that you've worked at, some of the experiences you've had, and how that led to actually setting up your own consultancy?
Well, I actually don't know anybody that's at school or has been at school that actually wanted to be a credit controller or in credit management. It's something that you'll probably find most of us fell into. To be honest, I didn't realise what credit control was when I started. My first job was working for a local authority.
Okay.
And from then on in, I worked in various different companies for quite many years and graduated from a credit controller right up to being a credit manager. Okay. So some companies were professional services, manufacturing, service-based industries and construction.
Okay, so you worked across a broad range of industries. So for some of our audience that just don't know what credit management is, just give us a brief explanation on what it actually is as a profession or as a process within a business. And then why is it so important for a business's survival?
So credit management is about looking after the sales ledger part of your business. So that is where you invoice for all the work you've done for your customers. A lot of people think that it's just about phoning people up and asking them to pay an invoice, but it's a bit more in depth than that because realistically, what you're asking a credit controller or a credit manager to do is to look at giving people credit on an account in order to pay their invoices at a later date to when they've maybe received goods, services and things like that. So there's a lot of other things that are involved in that. So risk analysis, due diligence, finding out who your customers are, which is really imperative, and also making sure that you stay on top of the fact that they're not paying you late because that can have a massive impact on a business. Yeah. And it really starts to drive away your profit, which is what businesses are aiming for, is to make profit. Yeah. And if you're being paid late, then you're dwindling your profit from that. So yes.
Okay. No, it makes total sense. And a really important part of business that I think a lot of businesses, especially construction businesses, really don't, put enough emphasis on, and tends to be the main reason that people end up going out of business because they haven't been paid. So on that note, what are the biggest mistakes that you see companies make, especially construction companies, when it comes to sort of managing credit within their business and actually having a process in place?
So I think, and it goes across the board on all sectors, in all honesty, it's about knowing who your customer is, knowing who you're working with. I just mentioned about risk. Finding out if there's a risk in working with that company and bringing that company in as your client. Are they going to have the ability to pay you? Are they actually worth working for? So if we take the construction sector, for instance, we've had quite a few businesses, and rightly so, that want to be really successful. So subcontractors and small SMEs in the construction sector, and their goal is to work with the tier one. However, working for a tier one does actually not necessarily put you in the right position as a company. So it has a lot of outside stress. So you're looking to work to their terms. You might have to get more people in to do certain projects with them. So within credit management, it tells you where you are cash-wise, tells you where you are in relation to can you afford to do a bigger project, because cash flow is really important. We know cash is king. And at the end of the day, if you don't have enough money to be able to facilitate that particular contract, you do have the ability to say no to something. And I think that is where a lot of people in that sector struggle, because if they're given an opportunity and dangled a carrot necessarily, it's like, well, that's what I'm aiming for. But I have seen quite a lot of small construction companies actually take that opportunity and end up losing their business.
Take on more than they can chew, essentially.
Exactly. So, you've got to be really careful in those aspects. But I think the main criteria for credit management across the board is that, you need to know your clients. You need to make sure you're invoicing the right people as well, which goes back to knowing your clients, and basically understanding that particular customer you've got. And it's not necessarily just your customers, it's also your suppliers, because you're reliant on your suppliers to produce you the goods in order for you to do the job that you're contracted to do. And if that supplier company is having cash flow issues, the probability of you not getting that particular stock in on time for you to be able to do a job on a time basis is really going to have a big impact on your business in order for you to make sure that you've done that job to time. And then that's going to impede on when you invoice it, the customer at the end might not be too happy that it's taken you longer. So there's a lot of things about credit risk which needs to be looked
on
into.
On
both sides, yes.
Accounts receivable and accounts payable as well, essentially.
Yeah. So your suppliers are just as important to your business as your clients. Are your suppliers going to be in a state that they have enough cash in order for you to actually supply the goods, because they might have to bring it in from somewhere else.
Of course.
And it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times.
So risk isn't just necessarily about who you're selling to, it's also who you're buying from. Because it is a cycle and you need that cycle to maintain your business. So credit risk is a priority for a lot of businesses, making sure you know who you're billing and making sure that their ability to pay. Because obviously if you're giving credit, you're in theory giving them a loan. And you have to think about, if you went to a bank, what would a bank expect you to do if you're asking for this loan? So you need to take that same premise with your customers, because you are, for a period of time, lending them money, really cash rolling them until they pay. Which is why when people are paying you late, it has a big impact on your business.
Of course.
And obviously affects your profit.
So given the current climate and everything that's happening right now, and late payments is a big problem that we constantly hear about in construction, insolvencies, supply chain risks, and all of this crazy stuff that's happening right now. But what are the challenges that you're seeing that specifically affect a company when it comes to credit management?
I think a lot of it, especially at this moment in time, we've got quite a few different areas of what I would classify as areas of concern. So more and more larger companies are not paying on time for various reasons. A lot of companies are really struggling with the national insurance, the wage increase, the extra taxes that they're having to pay. So if their margins were pretty narrow to begin with, they're even smaller now. And that is going to have a real big impact on cash as well. The other big thing is, obviously we hear a lot about insolvencies, especially in construction. Construction has always been a volatile sector when it comes to insolvencies. And in the last few years, we've had quite a few large businesses go bust, such as ISG and Henry.
And that obviously affects the whole supply chain.
It does, because if you think about ISG, for instance, going in insolvency, if you look at the creditors list that you can find on Companies House, there is a huge amount of businesses that had money in ISG that they hadn't been paid. So that is also going to have a knock-on domino effect and impact their business and how they're going to be trading potentially out of it, or whether or not they have the ability to trade out of it. So going back again to the risk and reviewing the risk of a business, it is really important, because if you did a risk analysis on ISG when they opened an account with you, then you might actually find that they had quite a high level of credit. But if you don't re-look at that kind of thing, then you're not going to notice that their credit scoring is going down. And by doing that, that is a red flag. So you need to maybe reduce their credit limit, make sure you're on top of them to ensure that they're paying you on time. The other thing is that...
That's a really good point, actually. I think it's not something I've seen many construction businesses do, actually give their client a credit limit.
Yeah.
So they continue to essentially bankroll their client. Obviously, the client may be giving you more and more work, but where do you put the line in the sand and sort of say, hey, we can't offer you any more credit. You've got to pay your outstanding invoices before we can do any more work on site.
Exactly. And this is the thing. I think a lot of SMEs are a bit frightened when they get larger contracts, and that those larger contracts then dictate terms to the SME. The SME is the one supplying the service, the goods, the work, whatever it is that you're doing as an SME company. And the thing is you should be able to dictate your own terms and not be afraid, because the real big issue that I think businesses really need to take into consideration is the fact that if you do say yes to a job that's really going to push you to the limit, are you prepared to push your business into insolvency just to work with somebody that you've dreamed of working for, but they're really pushing the boundaries of increasing their credit? So you might be asking them to pay on 30, 45 days, but they say, well, no, we don't pay till 90 days. Now, if you're invoicing them at 30 days, you're already calculating your profit that is going to be paid in 30 days. But if they don't pay you for 90 days, you've roughly lost all your profit. You've had 3 months worth of working capital in which you've had to find that money that they should have paid you by then to bankroll your own business.
Yep. Yep.
So credit and risk and seeing if they're viable to have a credit limit is really paramount. You've just got to think about it like your credit card. We all have credit cards these days, and you're given a credit limit, and that is based on your personal credit reference score. Now, if you want to prove your credit reference score, then obviously they're going to lend you more money. But if you have a bad credit score, they're not going to give you as much money, and you might not even be able to have a credit card. So you need to think about it in the same sort of lines. If they're not in a position to be able to pay you on time, then they shouldn't be given any credit, or you ask them to pay a bit upfront.
No, that makes so much sense. So like if a business leader, construction business owner, or sort of a finance director today is actually watching the podcast, could you give them like 1 or 2 practical things that they could implement today to really improve their credit, to really improve their sort of credit management process?
Again, it's really down to the basics. Know your customer, know who you're dealing with, know their entity name. This is so imperative. We actually do quite a lot of work with insolvency practitioners collecting debt from insolvent businesses. And we see a lot of invoices that are not set out correctly. They're not invoiced to the right entity. There's no address. There's no information. And having a really good invoice is so paramount for your business, because it's also representing your brand. If you send out an invoice that's incomplete and doesn't have all the narrative that they need to have, then your brand is out there and it looks a bit shoddy, really. And they're thinking, if your invoice is going to look like that, what's your actual work going to be like that? So, you're going to have to also realise that if you're invoicing somebody, you're going to have your brand on it. So make sure you have what we classify as a killer invoice. So you know your entity, you've got all the information. If they have purchase orders, they put that on there. If you're in construction and they've got plot numbers, areas, whatever the contract code is, put all this information on your invoice. Once your invoice is complete, then send it out straight away. Don't hang back. Also, invoice people over the period of the month. Don't save it all for like the last Sunday of the month and you're going to sit there with a bottle of wine and actually do all your invoices. Do it as a constant thing, because when you've got things to pay out, you have to pay out throughout the whole month. And if you're waiting for payments to come in, say on the 20th of the month, and you've got a big bill on the 15th of the month, how are you going to get over that problem? So constant billing across the month is really key, but making sure you know who you're dealing with. That is also imperative. The other thing is, and it is a misnomer that people say credit controllers can lose clients. I've never lost a client for asking them to pay an invoice in my entire career. The only time you actually lose a client is a few reasons. One, you've not done the job properly. Two, you've not done it in the time frame that you promised them they would do it. Three, for whatever reason, you decided to increase the quote value because you did a bit of extra work, but you never actually discussed that with your client. So they're quite shocked when they get that. And also, you're billing them maybe halfway through the job just because you're maybe a bit cash strapped. Now, if you turn that upon yourself and say, as a consumer, would I be happy to receive that invoice? It's a bit like when I talk to people and say, you ask somebody to come round and build you a wall in your garden, for instance. Yep. And they say, this is how much it's going to be, and I'll get it finished by this date. And you think, fantastic, yes, come along and do it. I agree to all of them terms. Yeah. Then they come round and they only half build it and they send you an invoice. Are you going to be happy? No. Exactly. Then you go and they finish the build, but it's not in the right place and it's not as high as you'd expected it to be, and the workmanship is rubbish. Yeah. Are you going to be happy to pay?
Not at all.
Okay. So the other thing is that you've expected a bricklayer to come and lay that wall, but you find out that person is actually a plumber. Are you going to be happy with that? No, because the fact is, does he really know what he's doing being a plumber as a trade and not a builder? Because you want that brick wall to last. So you need to think whether or not things that you've been asked to do have been done correctly within a timely manner. If at any point you need to adjust the price of that particular job because something else has cropped up in the middle of it, have the conversation with your client, make them fully aware, because I'm sure that whatever you buy in life or have somebody do for you in life, like take a car to a garage, you thinking it's only going to be £150 and then you rock up and it's £1,000, wouldn't you have liked them to have given you a call and told you what the problems are first, so you can actually make that decision and choice? That is what you should do in business. So that is also really important. The other thing is that making sure that you have a really good rapport with your customers, because you can find out a lot from your customers of whether or not they're doing really well or doing really badly, finding things tough. Now, the SME market is 99% of our economy. So we hold a big sway in the UK economy here. However, we seem to kowtow quite a lot to the larger businesses and the larger corporations that are out there, to the detriment of the SME market. And the SMEs need to stand their ground. Yeah. If you've got terms and conditions and these are your contracts, you stand by your contracts. And that's what you should do. Have faith in your ability. Somebody's come to you because you're really good at what you do and they can't do that particular piece of work. So that's why they've come to you. Take pride in the fact that it took you a long time to get into the position that you're in now, and also to be able to say, well, I am fully qualified. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then say that if they're not paying you, even though you've done everything they've asked you to do, yes, be upset. It's very rude.
Yeah. No, I think that's such really good points. And, as a business owner myself, I think, I've been in positions in the past where it's kind of felt a little bit awkward to reach out to a client who was owing me money and sort of, felt like I was bothering them to pay, and it felt like it might affect the actual relationship. But, I got some really good advice. I think it might have been in a conversation we had some time back, which was like, hey, if your client owes you money, they should pay you. Like there's no harm in actually reaching out and asking for money that you're actually owed. I think that's really good practice. To keep that part of your relationship with the client very professional. Yep. If they commit to pay you by a certain date, they should pay you, and if not, they should have a very good explanation not to, because it could be to the detriment of your own business.
Exactly. And it is about taking pride on your expertise and the fact that you promote yourself out in the big wide world as being that expert. And when people come to you for that advice, that work to help them out, and you do it and everything's great, then if they don't pay you, then take umbrage over it, because it is, people laugh when I say, but it's really rude. Yeah. It's so rude for somebody to take your advice, your expertise, do the thing that they want you to do, and then not pay you. Yeah. It's so wrong in so many levels.
Yeah. Good point. So looking ahead then, obviously you've been in the space of credit management for so long, and I'm sure you've seen many recessions, many different cycles, different types of company. What do you think the future of credit management looks like in the coming years?
I think, and this is something that as a company ourselves we really want to push, is to educating businesses the importance of good credit management within your company. Credit management has always been sort of like a back office kind of yeah, exactly. Down the corridor, don't talk to those people. They're little Rottweilers and say no to everything. But the reality is that we don't. We are trying to safeguard a company to try and mitigate losses so that business can continue to grow and stay in business. So the reality is, and I say this to a lot of people, is that credit management is the pin that holds all of those cogs together, that runs the business. Because without cash and without good credit management, your ability to get the things that drive a business forward, such as investment, funding, improving your credit score, being credit insurable, even down to the fact that you might be running a business now and thinking, well, in a few years' time, I might consider selling it. I'm really not sure. The thing that the outside world will look in at your business at is how you control your sales ledger, which is the place all your invoices sit. It's your only real true asset in this day and age. And if you're not looking after it, the outside world can tell. And if you're looking for a bit of funding, which nowadays is a lot harder than it was before COVID, people are going to really scrutinise that and say, well, actually, you're not looking after your own money and you want me to put money into your business. You prove to me you can look after your own money and we will have that discussion. Yeah. And by looking after the credit management, investing in credit management, investing in really good processes, policies, procedures, upskilling the staff members, investing in that department is really, really key. Because if you've got all of that in-house and you're doing really well, you're going to make those profits. You're going to have the cash in bank a lot quicker. You're going to be able to work with people and not lose out when they go bust. The sales team and the credit control team have to work really synclistically together, because sales are going out and selling. But again, the credit management is looking after everything that is running in your business.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tracey. That's been really good practical advice for some of our audience and construction business owners. Just for everyone who's listening or watching today, what's the best way for them to connect with you, learn more about what you do, and get in touch?
Yes, by all means, get in touch with us. Our website is www.pecunia2016.co.uk. You can also find me on LinkedIn. We have a business LinkedIn page. You'll see lots of different stuff that we post regularly on a daily basis. The other thing is that if anybody wants a quick chat, we offer a free, yes, I said free, 20-minute chat just to go over some of the problems that you might be facing and see where we can help. I mean, at the end of the day, what we really want to achieve with our business is helping businesses out there get the best from their credit management team and keep it in-house so everybody knows where they stand.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.